This is a great episode for drinking along with today. This is Stephanie Pichet, and I'm live in Montreal, Quebec, and I'm flying for flavor. Since I'm here in Montreal for my favorite wine show, La Grande Dégustation, this weekend, thought it would be a great time to chat about all things wine again today. I'm assuming that you listened to the bonus episode that popped up a couple of days ago. That was a little bit more of a fun episode, not a whole lot of editing. Basically, I just hit record for most of my time in Prince Edward County that I traveled with my husband, my brother, and his wife. The four of us have visited many wine regions together, and we plan to do so more often, so you may get to be reintroduced to them on occasion over the future as well. But this weekend, it's just Norm and I, and we are planning to head to the show tomorrow evening, hoping it's not going to be too busy on a Friday evening as compared to the crazy Saturday. But I was so impressed with the last show that I attended here, the selection, the way that it's structured. It is basically for wine lovers. There's not a lot of food booths in between. It is organized into different sections, themes, countries and regions. So it's easy kind of to get around. But I tried so many different things that I don't usually get to try at a lot of the other wine shows, whether they are the large public ones or the private industry tastings that I've attended. So it's always a lot of great fun to be an entire room crowded with wine lovers like that. So the bonus episode, of course, was more of just a fun throw together thing. This is going to be a little bit more structured because I really want you to finish listening to this episode that maybe you've learned something new about wine, ordering from wine lists or shopping for wine, just so that you can choose your next bottle with a little different insight than maybe you started with before today. And I'm going to kind of in between go through the creation of wine list and how it works from the perspective of somebody who had to do it. So you'll be hearing from my new friends, Laurel and Blair from Escoba Wine Bar and Bistro in Calgary, Alberta. I met them on my last trip over there this fall, and we had a great little chat while they were supposed to be doing their inventory on a Sunday morning, but they were very easily convinced to hang out with me and chat about their wine list. So it was a lot of great fun, and I got a lot of great insight into what it was like to get to create a wine list from scratch for a wine bar that already had a reputation. So it was kind of a tricky thing that they got into, but I think they did a fantastic job. And one of the reasons that I made a point of chatting with them for this interview was because we had such a great meal the night before, and I really loved the experience and some of the little tips and tricks of things that they have learned that worked for them, and I think would work for other people who also have to sell wine. So this will be going out to all my servers out there because you'll get a lot of little hints this way as well. So a quick little note before we get started. The sound kind of cuts in and out, and that's mostly because I'm using this software that's trying to pull out some of the equipment machinery noises that are in the background. It was just the three of us in an empty restaurant, and we had a lot of other kitchen equipment nearby. And I didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal while we were taping it, but obviously this little newbie to audio recording has to start paying attention to all those little sounds. So I did my best to clean it up, but for the most part, it's kind of cuts in and out here, but you should be able to hear our voices clear enough that at least you get the information. So here's our little Sunday morning chat with Laurel and Blair. I think this is the second or third Sunday in a row that I've been talking wine in the morning. I think Sundays are going to be my wine days from now on.
Reflect on the week.
Yeah, exactly. I think there was a couple of weeks ago, I think it was all basically we were having mimosas while we were taping the interview. So I appreciate the coffee, or else it's going to be a very long day for me.
No worries.
Okay. Really enjoyed my evening last night. It was one of those things that we tend to look for wine bars when we're traveling. And we tend to gravitate towards Latin flavors. My husband's addicted to anything that's somewhat Spanish whatsoever. Foods, tapas, smaller plates, similar styles in wines, that kind of thing. So this was just a pleasant surprise. We loved having nibbles and sharing like that. And he was really good at sharing last night, which sometimes he's not. Usually it's just that when he finds something, the platter starts to get a little closer to him. So it was all
starts to eat quicker.
He starts to eat a little quicker. Yeah, we share really well. I know, it's cute. But he still loves me. It's all good. I wanted to ask you a little bit about the wine list, and primarily because, through our conversation last night, I had no idea about the history, about the place had closed and then reopened. And, now that I'm doing some quick Googling last night when I got back, and there's all kinds of little newspaper articles talking about, all the problems that may have happened before and getting started all over again. So as much as it may have been a negative in a certain way, you get to start from scratch.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So what were you most excited about when you got to redo this all over again? Yeah, just what were you so excited to get started on first?
The very first thing we were most excited about was the wine list. We actually left the hiring of the staff a little bit long because we geeked out over the wine list. I think, that's an accurate representation.
Being able to put our own spin on the reincarnation of Muskova and bringing in the wine list that is for everybody, similar, as you said last night, but different, or similar but familiar,
yes,
in a sense, and just bringing that forward and having the accessibility and availability and of a majority of the wines to everybody who comes through the doors. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the things that I was happy to see. I love looking at wine lists, especially because I go to so many wine bars and wineries. I'm happy to see wines that do look a little familiar. Either I know, the region it's from, or I recognize the name, but it's not the usuals, right? We joked around last night. I don't want to knock any of my Italian friends, but enough with the Pinot Grigio. That seems to be a standard, especially the Santa Margherita, I believe, that's the number one seller out there. Between that and Yellowtail, right? You get the Australian Shiraz, and then you get the Malbecs. It always seems to be exactly the same ones on all the wine lists. And I think that a lot of restaurant owners or sommeliers are kind of torn between trying to please the guests that are coming in and then trying to create something different.
It was a blessing and a tiny bit of a curse, we thought at the very beginning, to have nothing. So there was no guideline. There was no, this drinker comes in and has always had this when they come in. This person in a suit who's selling to oil and gas, they're going to have typically this standard bottle of wine. Mm-hmm. We didn't have any preconceived notions, I guess, because our cellar was empty. Our previous clientele watched us liquidate our old cellar. So it was exciting for us to create something brand new because they knew that they had drank it to zero. We liquidated everything at half price. They watched the place empty. And then when we did magically decide to reopen, they walked in and said, "What did you do about the wine list?" And that was kind of cool, feeling like the popular kids in high school. Because neither of us were.
Well, the nervous kids starting off, sophomore year, and then actually managing to get up there and do it right and have such positive feedback.
Are you getting some of the old regulars coming back in?
Yeah, and they don't even ask really, well, can I have this? They say, what do you want to tell me about on the wine list? Because it's, in terms of design, it's 100% different than how it used to be. We used to have so many bottles, and we were tied, because there were so many bottles, we had to tie it to listing by the varietal.
Okay.
Which is, I don't know, for creative people, which restaurant people always are innately, that's a little bit of a shackle, even though it does kind of make it a little bit easier for some wine clientele to look for something. We were able to list by light to medium to full, and full bodied, and just boom, here it is.
List by weight instead of by varietal or by country. It may be a little confusing. However, you're not stuck to one category. You're not stuck to just looking at Pinot Noir or Cabernet. You sort of have to go through the entire wine list, and happy to help, of course, to find something that you would like.
And I think that's I like that where you had your little arrow showing down the center of the wine list, right? See, I was paying attention. But what I liked about it, I'm trying to think from the diner's perspective. Not everybody knows that a Pinot Noir is not always light.
Yeah.
Right? So if you listed a Pinot Noir higher up on the list, right? And then as opposed to down further, right? So a California Pinot, of course, is going to be heavier than, but at least somebody's going to have an idea of, okay, well, I really like a couple of these down here, but maybe I'll try this one because I like that.
Exactly.
So I think it's a smarter way of showcasing what you have in a different package, so people can kind of self-direct themselves with their wine orders.
Yeah,
right?
because self-directed works for the novice as for the experienced wine drinker, right?
Right.
A new driver knows how to follow a left-hand turn signal the same way that somebody who's been driving for 25 years. An arrow is always going to guide them in the right way. So just follow the I guess.
The road direction.
Yeah, follow the map. And,
Follow directions.
Yeah.
It's easy for some, but not for all. So I really did love the way that they organized their wine list. It wasn't based on varietals or regions. It was more about the weight and style of the wine, from light to heavy, just so that you can ignore the names on the bottles or the varietals that they're listing, but basically pick something that is closer to what you would normally enjoy. It was a really very simple, the wine list itself, especially their glass pours, wasn't overly long, but it was just enough that you could easily navigate through it and see something you recognize and say, okay, well, that's what I normally would have, but this one actually sounds better and it's right around the same weight. So it was a very ingenious way of getting people to step out of their normal routine and try something different. And I really do like wine lists in restaurants who have structured their wine list that way so that everyone can appreciate them. So even wine novices or someone who is scared to try something new, having a wine list that's organized into categories, light and fruity, full-bodied and smooth, similarly to how the LCBO labels or categorizes their wines through their LCBO website or within the stores. It just gives you a better idea of if you like a full-bodied and smooth red, then any of those descriptors will be pretty close to what you would normally choose any other time, whether you're shopping for a wine to purchase to bring home or in a wine list. So I want to talk a little bit about value, because one of the other things that I was really impressed with had to do with their price points were very reasonable. And I think that for people to start trying new wines and enjoying the process of breaking out of their usual routine, they need to be able to have some approachable price points that will make it easy for people to go into a wine by the bottle purchase. And I've talked to many restaurant managers and owners over the years, and they all agree, just like I do, that for the most part, it is always going to be cheaper by the glass if you get a bottle. Now, in Ontario, we do have the ability for restaurants to get a special addendum to their licensing, which allows for wines to be taken home after your purchase. So that means that if you wanted to order a bottle and you don't finish it, the restaurant can recork it for you and then you can take it home. This is probably one of the most economical solutions, because a lot of times the wines that you really want to try, you don't necessarily anticipate finishing the bottle. Or there's only two of you, or you have a short time frame, but at least you don't feel rushed. You can enjoy it, and you can actually continue to enjoy it later that evening or even the next day. So look for or contact your local restaurants or ask about that kind of licensing program if you're in Ontario. Believe it's also available in other provinces as well, but that gives you that chance to maybe go for a wine by the bottle that is highly recommended that you wouldn't normally try. So that's one of the things I would say. Now, my second tip is don't assume that just because it's expensive that it's better. I've seen many group dinners in restaurants and in my classes or otherwise where people tend to gravitate or get very excited about a very expensive or famous wine name. Sometimes wine names and brands are popular because they are just popular, and it's not necessarily that they are the better choices. So I would always suggest that to ignore the marketing, ignore the names, unless you are looking for something very specific that only that wine producer creates. But other than that, usually Most of the wines that I end up ordering by the bottle, it's especially when I'm dining out or I'm buying something for home. Either way, I'm usually on a day-to-day basis not choosing something that's necessarily on the bottom of the price point, but I'm certainly not doing the top. I would say I would do bottom third. And that's just because I've learned over the years that there's no point in spending, $100 to $150 a bottle as a gamble unless I've had it before. And most of those wines by the bottle, you can't always try first because most places aren't going to basically open a bottle to let you have a sample. However, one of the other great tips that I have for you has to do with the wines by the glass. Most bars and restaurants who have a great list of by the glass wines to try, they've taken the time to really select those wines that are they're not just great sellers, they're great crowd pleasers, and they always get great reviews. So they've chosen those wines by the glass for a reason, which means that if they have it listed by the bottle as well, it is probably your better solution if you're very nervous about trying a wine. You can see what the price point is like by the glass as opposed to the bottle, and you can make that decision. I think I mentioned it in a previous episode on wine as well, because I was talking to the Sudbury Secret servers and explaining to them that if somebody comes up to them and wants to try a wine and they're not quite sure of it, by suggesting a wine that is available by the glass, you have a couple of options for flexibility. You can just have a glass. Some places will give you a taste of it. And then if you do like it, yes, you can get a bottle. And then if you still like it, or if you're with a larger group and the bottle's finished, instead of ordering a whole other bottle, you can still have another glass of the same wine afterwards. So it does allow you a lot more flexibility. But if you're going to go with a wine by the bottle, I would always suggest that you stick to regions or countries that you are already familiar with. So if you happen to love California wines, then look for California wines, but maybe try to change one other thing. If you're in a restaurant that specializes in Italian foods, if they have California wines on the list, they are most likely going to be choosing California wines that go with what they're preparing. So I would look for maybe a Zinfandel, which is just about the same as a Primitivo, or Clorset Classic Pinot Grigio for a white will actually work with just about anything. But you get the idea. So kind of stick with your country or the region, because the styles that area produces are probably going to be closer to what you like. So there's a little bit about value. Don't get the highest price point one unless you really want to celebrate and you've already had that wine before, and this way there's no gamble. Other than that, bottom third in the price list is good if you're going to take a chance on it. If you're going to be, you can go up a little bit more in the price point if you happen to be familiar with the wine regions and what those wine styles are like. Because once you open the bottle, it's not that it's recommended, but if you try it and you just don't like it, especially if it's a $200 bottle, they're not necessarily going to take it back. So those usually just rules set up for wine faults only. So I would suggest that you just kind of hedge your bets and make sure you have a chance to try before you buy. So wine bars like Escoba are a great place when you want to sample a few things. So let's continue our chat with Laurel and Blair. Did you, because I hadn't been to the previous versions of this place, did you always have wine flights?
We started Wine Flights in 2008. So we've been open for a year. Mm-hmm. One of the owners at the time had done some traveling in California. Mm-hmm. And he came back and said, you know what? This is something that Calgary and Canada in general need to experience, because we don't have the opportunity to have wine every single day in Canada just by the nature of how some of us do, but the nature of our society is
yes.
not.
Some of us on this other side of the table too. Yeah, I getcha.
But the general populace don't have wine with every meal. It's usually used for a special occasion. So we need to be able to break down some of the barriers and some of the fear and allow them to experience without having the fear of having to commit to a full bottle just to try.
Or even a full glass.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the best way if somebody's indecisive about, the glass pour list, and ours is a little bit away from the norm, I guess you can say, it gives them the opportunity to have a little taste of everything and to sort of hone it down. Even last night, your husband
Oh, yes.
didn't like one of the wines, and I'm happy that he told me.
Well, that was very nice of you. He wasn't expecting you to replace it like that, but it was one of those things that's why he likes flights,
Yeah.
because he wants to sample and try different ones.
Exactly.
And it wasn't the fact that he liked it. He was craving reds.
Yeah.
And the only reason he went for whites is because I did.
Fair enough.
He has to stop following me in my lead. All the pressure's on me, right?
Yeah.
You say, well, I ordered it because you did, which is not always a good thing.
Yeah.
But I love the idea of flights. And one of the things, I think here in Alberta, because you have privately owned stores as compared to our provincially owned ones, I want to say owned, but organized, structured, basically, there's other terms that some of my friends call it, but it is so strict on how they can. And there's not very many, I know LCB outlets specifically in Ontario that even allow sampling in their vintages sections anymore. They don't all have tasting bars. It's like maybe one in, every so many cities you may be able to find one. So in other smaller towns, there's not very many opportunities to just taste wine alone.
Yeah.
Which is one of the reasons that I've always wanted to do wine events, even just to have a little taste of something. And I get so excited when I introduce somebody to something that they've always, I've always seen that and I've always been scared to try it.
Yeah.
Right? And then they get excited and they come over and they start taking pictures of the wine labels. And I'm like, yes, I did it. Right? Because I've chosen something I knew it was going to be well received.
Yeah.
So I can just imagine how exciting it must be to create an entire list of winners.
It was.
And I'm happy that you say that it's an entire list of winners, because we were, as I said, we were really nervous at the beginning. We, put off a lot of work that we needed to do for opening the restaurant to create a wine list. And we created our beverage program in 2 weeks, which is
That's
just
unheard
insane.
of. Yes.
We had reps coming in, bottles all over the place, just tasting and tasting and tasting and finding what spoke to us. And we had so much wine that was coming in that if the bottle was like, we would just look at each other. Yes, that's a yes. That's going on the list. No, that's getting the hell out of here. Yeah.
Exactly. So did you, because I don't know what the menu was like before, did you already have some standard dishes you knew we were bringing back and then you were looking for wines to basically sort of work with that menu? Or did you kind of say, okay, let's pretend the menu's not there and focus on the wine, figure out what works well, and then maybe fill in the blanks?
We did the latter. We knew what the caliber of food was going to be like. We knew that Brad's food is innately balanced as it stands, and it's sometimes ridiculously hard to pair with his food because it's already got everything that it needs. It can stand alone. And we also live in a world at Escoba which kind of fits into some Bermuda Triangle where we have a lunch crowd business and a dinner business that are completely different by nature, and we do the exact same menu for both. So part of Escoba's program is that at lunch we do a feature wine where all of our servers have the ability to pour a sample in the guest glass.
Yes, I had a
to
little bit
try
of a
it.
splash last night.
Yeah.
Yes, I like that.
Yeah, just to kind of take the fear away from making a decision at lunch. And also lunch is trimmed down to this 1 hour block. So if you have to spend 15 minutes digging through the wine list to figure out something that you like, we've taken some of that guesswork out, let you try it and see how it goes there. So with the glass pour list, we were looking for the initial reaction that we got directly out of the glass and saying, yes, this is a light-bodied wine that we want to use in our spectrum of wines by the glass, and there it's done. And then for the bottle list, we were kind of looking at our dinner clientele and thinking, hey, if they were eating appetizers, they've already started with a glass of Prosecco, this is something that's going to wow their socks off, and they're going to enjoy it. They're going to talk about it the entire evening while they're at the table, right? So there's kind of these two worlds that we have, one foot in the corporate crowd and one foot in the artistic evening crowd, that we tried to bridge that gap with the wine. Because
lunch service is tricky when it comes to wine stuff. So I applaud you with the little sample pours, because I keep thinking that as a marketing and sales girl, my thought is there's a lot of hesitation sometimes when people are coming in for business meetings, business lunches or whatever, about whether they should be drinking during lunch.
Yeah.
But if you've already put a splash in the glasses in front of them, odds are they're going to order a glass or they'll order a bottle. So it kind of takes away that fear, but not the fear of whether they're going to like the wine, fear of whether they should be drinking at all, because you just made the decision for them.
Exactly.
Well, everybody gets a splash, right?
Yeah.
And if one person's hesitant, so have a San Pellegrino, but everybody's allowed to sort of think about having that drink at lunch.
Yes.
Because it's already there.
I know. There's this whole stigma thing about, you're not supposed to be drinking at lunch, and if your host isn't drinking, then you shouldn't. And first of all, I think that's all crap. Usually, as far as I'm concerned, is that if you have one, first of all, most people are not necessarily paying for the entire lunch during lunch meetings anymore. Having one glass of wine is not going to.
We're all adults here, right?
Thank you. That's exactly my point. And you know what? And I love it because I work within this industry. If I'm not having a glass of wine, people think something's wrong. So. So we were talking about flights there. And if you've never had one before, those are presets of usually 3 to 4 wines that have sample sizes of about 2-ounce pours of each. And sometimes the wine bars will have it's set up in different themes, as in a tour of France, tour of California. Other times I've seen it where it's basically a Pinot Noir comparison or a Cabernet comparison. There's other wine bars out there that actually just let you choose from a set list. So there's a lot of different options out there. So especially if you're traveling and you don't have one in your own town or city, take a look for a local wine bar if you want to experiment a little bit, because having those small pours and tastes of different wines is a great way for you to expand your palate, learn about different wines that are out there, different regions that you may not be familiar with. It's the wine world's way of saying try before you buy. Now, a couple of other tips. I wanted to talk a little bit about shopping. So another way of tasting wines before you buy sometimes is in with your own wine stores. So I'm going to focus here on Ontario and Quebec. So in Ontario, there are certain LCBO locations that do have a tasting bar that are built into them. Usually be found in the larger centers, but I believe if you go through the LCBO website, you can actually look for locations that specifically have that tasting bar set up so that you can try before you buy. As well, if you happen to be on this side of the border in Quebec, the SAQs also have a similar setup for tasting bar, but some of these are, you can basically get a card that you can just refill. You do pay for your samples, but they're all set up on these great storage systems so that every wine by the glass that they're offering for you to taste will all taste at the proper temperature, regardless of how long the bottle's been in there. So there's these great storage and pour systems that a lot of the SAQs have, and that I'm waiting for the LCBOs to start bringing into Ontario as well. But it's a fun time to wander around, shop for wine with a glass of something to sort of inspire you while you're shopping. So I think it's a great little tool that the SAQs developed to be used here in Quebec. So besides those, the only other thing I would suggest, just like I mentioned that the restaurants would choose wines by the glass that they know are good sellers, another way for you to look for good sellers within your wine store, so that'd be the LCBO or SAQ or wherever you're shopping for wine, take a look for usually not a discounted section or what they would call bin ends. Some restaurants even have them. I tend to gravitate towards them because a lot of times the wines that I really like to buy on an ongoing basis for myself at home are ones that are also popular with a lot of other wine lovers out there, which means that they tend to go quickly. So those bin ends usually aren't necessarily bad wines. Sometimes they're discounted only because they want to get rid of that last bottle. And these were wines that this is the last bottle out of the 3 to 4 cases that the wine store had. So they're usually great sellers, obviously, if they're down to one bottle. So if that's something that you're interested in trying something new, ask for some assistance when you're shopping at the store where you're buying it, just to get someone else's opinion. But it's a great place to experiment if you want to try some wines that obviously sold really well prior. And you know what that sound means? It's time for a fly in my soup. This is the time of the episode where I get to rant and rave a little bit. And of course, since I'm sitting here in my hotel room in Montreal and I'm talking about wine, I'm going to vent about wine ordering. And I kind of goes back to some of the conversations I had with Laurel and Blair and other conversations I had in Prince Edward County, where there still seems to be wine lovers out there who are stuck on their one kind of wine, one varietal, one country, one brand name, and they don't want to veer from it. It's fine when you're at your own home, but just because you only drink the J. Lohr Seven Oaks at home does not mean that you should be expecting that every restaurant and wine bar would also carry the J. Lohr Seven Oaks whenever you go out anywhere. And I know it's comforting to have that, but if you can buy it at home at regular retail, going out for a meal or going out for wine I would be spending my time trying something maybe a little bit different. So maybe a different wine produced by J. Lohr, or a different California Cabernet Sauvignon, or maybe something from a different country that's a Cabernet Sauvignon that might be comparable. Something from, I don't know, let's say South America somewhere. There's a couple of really great cabs that I like from Argentina as well. So I would suggest that you, I'm begging you actually, it allows more options for wines in wine bars and wine lists. And it's more of an adventure when you get to dine and go to different places when not every single restaurant has the same wines on a list. And sometimes I notice that seems to happen when you get the cluster of franchises all together. So those same restaurants that are all basically owned by a parent company, they all bulk buy these wines and they just want them to be good sellers. So that's what you get used to. And so if you don't want those wines and want to try something else, if those franchises aren't doing it for you, go to a smaller local independent place that has more flexibility on what they're bringing in for their wine lists, and that gives you the opportunity to try something a little different. Save that J. Lohr for at home. Tips for novice wine drinkers who are coming into the restaurant for the first time. Whether this restaurant or other restaurants, they, not sure. Because I have instructed some basics on wine over the years, it's surprising how many people don't understand what a varietal is. Or they don't know that Chardonnay is actually the name of a grape, right? They thought it was an area or a style. There's a lot of different levels of basic knowledge out there. How would you suggest somebody to look at a wine list and maybe choose something to start? Like if I'm going to choose something, where do I start?
We do some training with our staff for this.
Okay.
We instruct our staff to always begin with, if somebody doesn't know what they want, what do you usually like to drink? And not in terms of varietal, it's like in terms of the flavors that you like to have on your tongue.
Okay.
So if you like citrus, do you like lemon or do you like orange? Because there's two different flavors of that. If you talk about body, especially when it comes to red, do you want your gums tight? From the tannin? It's just explaining it, right? Like they don't, a customer doesn't want to say tannin in case they don't say it properly, or they don't know if tannin is for white and for red or whatever. Just take it away from them and say, do you make it simple? Keep it simple, stupid's always been our mantra. If you traditionally always drink Malbec, then we're not going to try and steer you away from it, but we are going to give you some suggestions that are similar in body and profile for something that you might enjoy.
I find that if you're a novice customer coming in, the best way to learn is to simply just ask questions. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. There are people working in the restaurants, either sommelier or just a really informed professional server, that are more than happy to direct you in the right way. If you want, or if you don't like something, I will find something to fill that hole for you. Or if you're looking to try something new, I'll happily bring you something.
That's exciting.
Something different. Yeah. But don't be shy and don't be embarrassed, especially if you can't pronounce a word, or if you're unsure of what this
pointing works.
this wine
Yeah.
is. Yeah.
Right? If you're unsure how to pronounce it, especially when, a lot of bottles or wines are usually written in native languages or something, or kind of translated to English, but it may be difficult or scary for some people. So pointing works.
Definitely.
And I always get it. And if it is a complicated, name on a wine list, and if a customer points to it, I usually ask the waiter to make sure that they point back so we're grabbing the right bottle.
Yeah.
I've actually seen some wine lists that have numbers beside them all so that they make people order by the number.
Yeah.
But which kind of takes away from it, right? I just find it's not
That's
as
how I
sexy to
order
say
my
a
takeout.
number 42. Yeah, exactly. As opposed to ordering your wine off the list.
But I think you hit the nail right on the head. Start with what you don't like.
Yeah.
Because if you are new to it, if you're a novice wine drinker, you know what you've had that you didn't like. You haven't drank a whole lot of wine. You haven't developed a palate towards things, but anybody knows what they don't like. I don't like the smell of patchouli. I know I don't like the color red when I wear it. I know it's easier to remember what you don't like than it is sometimes than what you do like, especially when it's something new.
Mm-hmm.
So start by saying, I really don't like wine that is too sweet, or I don't like wine that has too much tannin, or I don't like white wine that has too much of that woody flavor, which would be oak, or, just... And
But I love big red wines or
Yeah.
switch to it. Yeah, sorry.
No.
No, but that's exactly it, right? So I guess it's pulling the amount of information out of it, and don't be afraid to share.
Yeah.
Or even starting off with, okay, if I'm going to have a glass of wine at home or at someplace else, this is what I usually have.
Yeah.
And that's a good starting point, right? Okay, so now that because you've been open for a few weeks, this is going to be a fun one. What are the types of wines that people are asking for that you don't have? What's the number one contender?
We actually have a program for that.
I just find it funny because now you're going to have like a checklist. Like, do we add it or do we not?
We've made business cards for wine suggestions just because we
fun.
knew that our list was going to be substantially smaller than it had been in the past. And we've actually gotten a lot of requests for run-of-the-mill Amarones on the list. And when I say run-of-the-mill, I mean the big producers that you see at the
very
keg, and
Yes.
you see like Mozzi and they have a place in the world. They haven't necessarily ever had a place at Escoba, but that tells us a different thing. It tells us that the consumer, everybody's money is tight in this economy. So they want to be spending money on wines that they recognize and that they know the value behind.
Yes.
Which
Name
is kind
recognition.
kind of counterintuitive to the restaurant platform, because I'm not necessarily going to list something that I can see at my local wine shop and then do a cost comparison because it takes the romance away from things. So what we've done to mitigate that is we've taken some huge producers and found something that they don't necessarily have too much on the liquor store shelves. Great example, we have J-Lore on our list, fantastic producer from California, well-known, Albertans.
Everyone knows it.
Absolutely support everything that J-Lore do, but they're used to seeing the Seven Oaks Cab. If not the Seven Oaks Cab, they've seen the gold label like the Hilltop Reserve.
Yep.
What we've done is brought in one of their obscure wines like Valdegay, which is completely unknown for most of our clientele. And we pour it for them and say, why don't you try this? It's J-Lore. And they're like, oh, I love J-Lore. I know that it's going to be well made, but it's something that they're not used to seeing. So we get the best. Again, we're trying to keep one foot in the
corporate door, 1 foot in the artistic door.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They make it sound so relaxing and so easy, don't they? It was a true pleasure speaking with them. And again, I really appreciate them taking time out of their inventory day just to chat with me about all their excitement and creating their new wine list and the reopening of the Escoba Bistro and Wine Bar. It's, I believe, their third time that this place has reopened. It has survived many different things over the years, and obviously it has a great following in the Calgary area, so make sure you go and check it out next time you are visiting downtown Calgary. And a couple other things, I'm going to include some basic infographics and other little helpful hints about wine shopping and ordering on the show notes. And as always, you can find the show notes at the same format for each show. So it's always stephaniepichet.ca/flavor and then the episode number, and this is episode 12. So for the show notes for today, it's going to be stephaniepichet.ca/flavor12, and flavor spelled the Canadian way, FLAVOUR. couple of the things that I'm going to be working on for the new year, now that we've been talking about some wine basics, with my visiting wine shows, giving you a little idea of what's involved with going to events, what you can expect, maybe getting you to try new things at restaurants, wine bars, or just for shopping. Now we're going to get into some more specifics. So for the 2018 season, I'm really hoping to incorporate, hopefully once a month, but a more specific episode on either a wine region, a varietal, or a particular style, so that you can get some in-depth knowledge and a little bit of an introduction to something different. So again, you can expand your wine knowledge and your palate a little bit. And for those who want to get even more up close and personal with some wines and some wine knowledge, of course, I do host private classes throughout Ontario. I probably would go to Quebec as well, as long as I had some good notice for it. But I do host classes for 8 or more in person or by Skype. I've done a few by Skype so far, and it's been a lot of fun. They basically can just be booked in. As long as I have a couple weeks in advance, I can check the calendar with my assistant just to make sure that it's not going to overlap with any other events I'm hosting in Northern Ontario. So just send us an email or click on the link within the show notes if you want more information on that. I don't have many Thursday, Fridays, or Saturdays left. Unfortunately, those usually go quickly, but if you have some flexibility in other days of the week, don't hesitate to ask. And because if we're getting close to the holiday season, I am including recipes, of course, even in these wine episodes. So if you check the show notes for this one and including the last one, I believe the bonus episode or episode 11 I did, but I'm starting to include at least 1 or 2 make-ahead recipes, usually hors d'oeuvres, things that you can prepare ahead of time and then put in your freezer now, so that within the next few weeks, when your entertaining season starts, you'll have things that are ready to go so that you don't feel so overwhelmed and get to enjoy your time with your guests. So I'll include 2 of those for every episode, so make sure you check out the show notes for that. Don't forget about the cruise for 2018 in August. It is going to be one heck of an all-inclusive wine and food feast in Bordeaux region in France. All of the details are on the website with the PDF contact information. And if you follow along on Instagram or any of the other social media channels that I'm on, you'll notice that I'm posting beautiful pictures just to entice you from the team at Uniworld and their river cruises. So contact the travel agents directly if you need any more information on that cruise. There is only 10 cabins available for those who are traveling within our package, but I believe they may have some flexibility. But keep in mind that the boat only holds 130 people. So, of course, a big thank you to Laurel and Blair and the entire team at Escoba Bistro and Wine Bar for making Norm and I feel like at home. And I highly recommend anyone to be visiting there, because they do make you feel really... it's kind of like coming into a family. They seem to know a lot of the regulars. Their staff get along really well. It's just a really warm and welcoming feeling when you walk in their door. So make sure you take time to check them out, and I have the link for their website on the show notes as well. Thank you to you, of course, for listening to 12 episodes now. Yippee! And as I'm traveling and going through all of these little towns and cities and stuff over the next little while, I'm getting a little bit better at these just talking into microphone things, as opposed to me hosting classes when I have to be on point with specific notes. So hopefully that you're liking my style and understanding the plan, what I have going forward. I do want to do a lot of things, little bonus episodes here and there for those who want the more in-depth information. But at the most part, this is supposed to be just general food, wine, and travel information that's supposed to make your life a little bit more luxurious and flavorful. But make sure you check out the next bonus episode. It's going to pop up hopefully by the end of next week, because it's going to record some recordings and some notes that I'll be taking while I'm at the show in Montreal this weekend, as well as I'm at the Wines of Chile event in Toronto on Tuesday. So I'm going to combine both of those just so that you can have an overall picture of both of those events for those who want some in-depth information of wine recommendations and what both shows were like. So in the meantime, enjoy your November day. At least it's still not snowing in most parts here in this area, but it's raining and again, it's not snowing. Have yourself a great weekend.